In a distant corner of the galaxy, where stars burned bright and nebulae painted the void in shades of violet and gold, there lived a species known as the Lumini. They were gentle beings, their translucent bodies glowing softly like bioluminescent creatures from Earth's oceans. For centuries they had thrived on their homeworld Luminara, a planet bathed in perpetual twilight, its skies shimmering with auroras that danced to an eternal rhythm. But now, disaster loomed over them. A series of cosmic storms had torn through their star system, flinging debris across space and destabilizing Luminara's fragile atmosphere. The once stable world was now racked by violent winds, electrical storms, and plummeting temperatures. The Lumini, who drew energy from light and warmth, found themselves struggling to survive. Desperation gripped their hearts as they realized their time was running out. The Lumini Council gathered in their grand assembly hall, a crystalline dome that refracted the dim light of their dying sun into rainbows. Their leader, Elder Kalis, spoke with a voice trembling not just from age but also from fear. "We must send a signal," he said, "an SOS to those beyond our stars. Perhaps others can help us restore balance before it is too late." With great effort, they transmitted their plea into the vastness of space, hoping it would reach one of the benevolent civilizations rumored to exist among the stars. What they didn't know, however, was that their message would take a wrong turn and land in hands far more dangerous than they could have imagined. Meanwhile, light years away, aboard the human flagship Aegis Dawn, Captain Ilara Voss sat alone in her quarters, staring at the swirling patterns of hyperspace outside her window. Humanity had come a long way since first leaving Earth. Once confined to their tiny blue planet, humans had ventured into the cosmos with unmatched determination. Their homeworld, Earth, was infamous throughout nearby systems as a death world. It was a place teeming with predators, natural disasters, and diseases that pushed humanity to evolve into survivors unlike any other species. Ilara herself embodied this resilience. Born on Mars during humanity's early colonization efforts, she grew up learning how to adapt, endure, and overcome. Now, as captain of the Aegis Dawn, she commanded a fleet tasked with exploring uncharted regions of space. While many alien species viewed humans with awe or outright fear, Ilara prided herself on leading her crew with wisdom and restraint. But tonight, something unusual flickered across her console. A faint signal, garbled yet unmistakably, a cry for help. Her brows furrowed as she replayed the transmission. Bits of it were clear enough. Mentions of devastation, pleas for aid, and coordinates pointing to a distant star system. Yet something about the tone felt unfamiliar. Too soft, too vulnerable. Not the kind of call humanity usually received. Curiosity piqued, Ilara summoned her science officer, Lieutenant Ria Torres, to analyze the message further. Within minutes, Ria confirmed what Ilara suspected. The signal came from a species unknown to human records. "Captain," Ria said cautiously, "these beings, they don't seem equipped to handle whatever catastrophe hit them. If we respond, we might be walking into a situation we're not prepared for." Ilara leaned back in her chair, her mind racing. Responding meant risking resources, manpower, and possibly lives. On the other hand, ignoring the plea went against everything humanity claimed to stand for. Over centuries of expansion, humans had learned survival wasn't just about strength. It was also about compassion. Helping weaker species was part of proving they weren't the monsters some aliens believed them to be. Yet doubt lingered. Who were these strangers? And why did their plight feel so delicate compared to the harsh realities humanity faced daily? Still, as Ilara stared at the blinking coordinates on her screen, she made her decision. She couldn't ignore a cry for help, not when her fleet carried the means to make a difference. "Set course for the origin of the signal," she ordered quietly. "Let's see who needs our help, and whether we're ready to give it." As the Aegis Dawn shifted course heading toward the unknown, neither Ilara nor her crew realized the gravity of what awaited them. The Lumini had sent their SOS hoping for salvation, but instead they had summoned Deathworlders. And while humanity intended no harm, their arrival would change the fate of both species forever. The journey to the Lumini's star system took several days, during which the crew of the Aegis Dawn prepared for every possible scenario. Captain. Ilara Voss held briefings with her senior officers, mapping out strategies for first contact. Lieutenant Ria Torres worked tirelessly to decode more fragments of the SOS signal, piecing together what little they knew about the mysterious species. Meanwhile, the ship's security chief, Commander Jax Calder, drilled his team on protocols for non-hostile encounters, though he couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't quite right. "This doesn't add up," Jax muttered one evening, as he reviewed data in the war room alongside Ilara and Ria. "Their message sounds desperate, sure, but there's no mention of weapons or defenses. No signs of warfare or invaders, just cosmic storms. That seems too simple." Ilara nodded thoughtfully. "It does feel unusual, but we can't assume anything until we're face to face with them. For all we know, this could be a genuine cry for help, and if it is, we owe it to them to respond." Despite her calm demeanor, Ilara shared Jax's unease. Humanity's history with first contact had been mixed at best. Some alien species welcomed humans with open arms. Others saw them as threats and reacted accordingly. The Lumini, whoever they were, remained an enigma, a blank slate waiting to be filled. When the fleet finally arrived at the coordinates from the SOS signal, the sight before them was breathtaking. Luminara hung suspended in space like a jewel, its surface shimmering faintly under the dim glow of its dying sun. Swirling storms raged across its atmosphere, casting eerie shadows over the landscape below. Orbiting the planet were remnants of satellites and orbital platforms, their skeletal remains testament to the devastation wrought by the cosmic storms. Ilara ordered her communications officer to broadcast a friendly greeting. "This is Captain Ilara Voss of the human vessel Aegis Dawn. We received your distress signal and have come to offer assistance. Please respond." For a moment, silence stretched taut across the void. Then, a soft voice crackled through the speakers. It was melodic yet tinged with exhaustion. "We are the Lumini. You came." The tone carried disbelief, almost as though they hadn't expected anyone to answer. "Yes, we're here," Ilara replied. "Can you tell us more about what happened?" The Lumini explained their plight. The cosmic storms, the loss of light and warmth, the slow decline of their people. As they spoke, holographic images appeared on the bridge, transmitted directly from the Lumini. They showed glimpses of their once vibrant world, glowing forests, crystalline cities, and skies alive with radiant colors. Now those same landscapes lay in ruins, darkened and desolate. Ilara felt a pang of sympathy. These beings weren't warriors or conquerors, they were survivors clinging to hope. She turned to her crew. "Prepare landing teams. Let's get boots on the ground and assess how we can help." The first meeting between humans and Lumine occurred near the edge of a crumbling city. The Lumine emerged cautiously, their translucent forms shimmering faintly even in the dim light. They moved gracefully, their steps light and deliberate as though afraid of startling their visitors. Elder Kalis stepped forward, his luminous body flickering weakly. "Thank you for coming," he said, bowing slightly. "We feared no one would hear our call." Ilara inclined her head in return. "We heard you and we'll do everything we can to assist." But not everyone aboard the Aegis Dawn felt reassured. Back on the ship, Ria analyzed samples collected from the planet's atmosphere and soil. What she found troubled her deeply. "Captain," she reported later in private, "the storms aren't natural. At least, not entirely. There are traces of energy signatures here that don't match any known stellar phenomenon. Someone or something might have triggered them deliberately." Ilara frowned. "Are you saying this wasn't just bad luck? That someone attacked them?" "It's possible," Ria admitted. "But if that's true, then helping them might put us in danger too." Before Ilara could respond, another issue arose. During initial relief efforts, some members of the landing team noticed strange behavior among the Lumini. While most seemed genuinely grateful, a few eyed the humans with suspicion, whispering amongst themselves. When questioned, Elder Kalis dismissed their concerns, claiming it was merely fear born of desperation. Yet Jax wasn't convinced. "Something feels off, Captain," he said bluntly. These creatures may look harmless, but we don't know enough about them to trust blindly. Ilara understood his caution, but refused to let paranoia dictate their actions. We'll proceed carefully, she assured him, but we can't abandon them because of gut feelings. If we're going to prove humanity isn't just another predator in the galaxy, this is our chance. As the hours passed, tensions began to rise, not just within the human crew but between the two species as well. Misunderstandings multiplied, fueled by differences in language, culture, and perspective. The Lumini struggled to comprehend why humans carried weapons when they claimed to come in peace. Conversely, the humans grew wary of the Lumini's evasive answers about the storm's origins. By the end of the day, both sides realized that while their intentions might align, their methods did not. Trust, fragile and untested, teetered on the brink of collapse. And somewhere in the shadows of Luminara's ruined cities, unseen forces watched and waited. As the humans continued their efforts to aid the Lumini, cracks began to form in the fragile alliance. The Lumini were grateful for the help, but their gratitude was tinged with unease. They watched silently as human engineers worked tirelessly to repair damaged infrastructure and restore power to their dimming cities. Their glowing forms flickered, faintly in the shadows, a stark contrast to the confident, determined movements of the humans. Captain Ilara Voss noticed the tension growing between her crew and the Lumini. Despite her best efforts to foster trust, misunderstandings persisted. For instance, when Commander Jax Calder instructed his security team to patrol the outskirts of the city, some Lumini interpreted it as a sign of hostility rather than precaution. Why do they carry weapons if they mean no harm? One Lumini elder whispered to Kalis during a tense exchange. Ilara tried to explain that carrying weapons wasn't about aggression, it was about being prepared. But the Lumini's culture, built on peace and cooperation, struggled to grasp such concepts. To them, preparation for conflict seemed like an admission of mistrust. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Ria Torres grew increasingly alarmed by her findings. After analyzing more samples from Luminara's atmosphere, she discovered anomalies that pointed to something far more sinister than natural disasters. Energy signatures embedded in the storm patterns suggested deliberate interference, perhaps even sabotage. She shared her suspicions with Ilara in private. "Captain," Ria said, her voice low but urgent, "these storms weren't caused by random cosmic events. Someone manipulated them, and whoever did this has technology beyond anything we've seen before." Ilara frowned, her mind racing. "Are you saying the Lumini might not be telling us everything? That they could have enemies we don't know about?" "It's possible," Ria admitted. "But there's another angle we need to consider. What if we're the ones walking into a trap? What if whoever attacked the Lumini is still out there, and now they're watching us?" The thought sent a chill through Ilara. If Ria was right, then the situation was far more dangerous than anyone had anticipated. Yet pulling out now would leave the Lumini defenseless and betray the very principles humanity claimed to uphold. That night, as the crew settled into makeshift quarters within the ruined city, strange occurrences began to unsettle them further. Equipment malfunctioned without explanation. Communication devices crackled with static, occasionally picking up faint whispers in languages none of them recognized. Some members of the landing team reported seeing fleeting shapes moving just beyond the edge of their vision, shapes that vanished when approached. Commander Jax Calder took these reports seriously. He doubled the patrols around the perimeter, ensuring his team remained vigilant, but even he couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. "Something's out here," he muttered to himself as he scanned the darkened ruins with a flashlight. "And it doesn't want us messing around." His instincts proved correct sooner than expected. During one patrol, two of his officers stumbled upon a hidden chamber beneath the rubble. Inside, they found remnants of advanced machinery, clearly alien in origin, that pulsed faintly with residual energy. Symbols etched into the walls glowed softly, shifting colors in response to their presence. It was unlike anything they'd ever seen. When news of the discovery reached Ilara, she wasted no time assembling a small team to investigate. Accompanied by Ria and Jax, she descended into the chamber, her heart pounding with equal parts excitement and dread. As they examined the machinery, Rhea's eyes widened. "This isn't Lumini tech," she whispered. "Whoever built this, they're way ahead of both us and the Lumini." Before anyone could speculate further, the ground trembled violently. Dust rained down from the ceiling as the symbols on the walls flared brighter, bathing the room in an eerie light. A deep, resonant hum filled the air, growing louder by the second. Then from the shadows figures emerged, tall angular beings clad in sleek metallic armor. Their eyes glowed with an unnatural intensity, locking onto the intruders with predatory focus. "Weapons ready," Jax barked, raising his rifle, but the newcomers made no move to attack. Instead, one stepped forward, its voice echoing unnaturally. "You should not be here," it said simply, its tone devoid of emotion. Ilara raised a hand to signal her team to hold fire. "We're here to help the Lumini," she replied firmly. "Who are you, and what is your interest in this planet?" The being tilted its head, studying her curiously. "Help? You cannot help them, not anymore." Before Ilara could press for answers, the chamber shook again, and the lights flickered wildly. When they stabilized moments later, the mysterious figures were gone, leaving behind only silence and more questions. Back on the surface, Elder Kalis greeted the returning team with visible apprehension. "What did you find?" he asked, though his tone suggested he already knew the answer. Ilara met his gaze evenly. "Enough to know you haven't told us everything. Who were those beings? And why are they here?" Kalis hesitated, his luminous form dimming slightly. Finally, he sighed. "They are the Voidborn, predators who feed on light and life itself. We thought we could hide from them, but they found us. Now, because of your arrival, they may come for all of us." The weight of his words hung heavy in the air. Humanity had walked into a conflict far older and far deadlier than they had imagined. The revelation about the Voidborn sent shockwaves through the human crew. For days, they had been operating under the assumption that the Lumini were victims of natural disasters, a tragic but straightforward crisis. Now, with Elder Kalis's admission, the situation became infinitely more complex and dangerous. Captain Ilara Voss stood in the makeshift command center, her mind racing as she processed what she just learned. "The Voidborn," she repeated slowly, turning to face Kalis. "You knew they were coming for you, didn't you? That's why you sent the SOS." Kalis nodded solemnly, his translucent form flickering faintly like a dying flame. "We hoped someone stronger might come to our aid, someone who could stand against them, but we never imagined it would be Deathworlders." His voice carried a mixture of awe and trepidation, reflecting the fear many species felt toward humanity. Ilara ignored the implication, focusing instead on the immediate threat. "Why didn't you tell us sooner? We could have prepared better." "If we'd known what we were dealing with, we feared you would leave us," Kalis admitted. "Or worse, that you would see us as too weak to save. Humanity is not known for kindness, Captain. Your reputation precedes you." Her jaw tightened at the remark, but she couldn't deny its truth. Humans had earned their fearsome reputation over centuries of survival in harsh conditions and brutal conflicts. To other species, they were unpredictable, capable of great compassion or devastating ruthlessness, depending on the circumstances. "We're here now," Ilara said firmly, "and we don't abandon those who need help. But I need answers. Who are these Voidborn? What do they want?" Kalis hesitated before speaking again. "They are ancient beings, older than the stars themselves. They consume light and energy, the very essence of life. Wherever they go, darkness follows. When they discovered us, we tried to hide, but our glow made us easy targets. The storms, they were created by the Voidborn to weaken us, to drain our strength so we could no longer resist." Lieutenant Rhea Torres listened intently, her sharp mind piecing together the implications. "If they can manipulate cosmic forces like that, then they're far more advanced than we are," she murmured. "This isn't just a fight for survival, it's a battle against something almost godlike." Commander Jax Calder crossed his arms, his expression grim. "Great. So we're up against interstellar monsters with technology beyond anything we've seen. Just another day in the life of humanity, right?" Ilara shot him a warning glance before addressing Kalis again. "Is there any way to stop them? Any weakness we can exploit?" Kalis shook his head sadly. "We have searched for centuries, but found nothing. The Voidborn are relentless. They cannot be reasoned with or bargained with. Once they begin feeding, they will not stop until all light is extinguished." The room fell silent as the weight of his words sank in. Humanity prided itself on finding solutions, even in the face of overwhelming odds. But how could they fight an enemy that seemed invincible? Determined to uncover more, Ilara ordered her team to investigate the hidden chamber further. Armed with enhanced scanners and protective gear, they returned to the underground ruins, this time accompanied by a reluctant elder Kalis. As they descended into the dimly lit space, the air grew colder, heavier, as though the shadows themselves resisted their presence. Rhea examined the alien machinery closely, her fingers tracing the glowing symbols etched into the walls. "These patterns, they're some kind of language," she said. "It's not Lumini, and it's definitely not human. Maybe it belongs to the Voidborn." "Can you translate it?" Ilara asked. "I'll try," Rhea replied, pulling out her handheld device. She began inputting data, her brow furrowed in concentration. After several tense minutes, fragments of meaning started to emerge. "It talks about consumption and dominance. It seems to be instructions, maybe a blueprint for their weapons." Before she could delve deeper, the ground trembled violently once more. This time, however, the shaking didn't stop. Dust rained down from the ceiling as cracks spiderwebbed across the walls. A low guttural hum filled the chamber, growing louder with each passing second. "They know we're here," Jax growled, raising his weapon. "Get ready." Suddenly the shadows shifted, coalescing into forms that loomed ominously over the group. The Voidborn had returned, or perhaps they had never truly left. Their metallic armor gleamed faintly in the dim light, and their glowing eyes locked onto the intruders with predatory precision. "You should not meddle in matters beyond your understanding," one of the beings intoned, its voice resonating unnaturally. "Leave this world or perish alongside it." Ilara stepped forward, her voice steady despite the fear clawing at her chest. "We won't let you destroy these people. If you want Luminara, you'll have to go through us." The Voidborn tilted their heads simultaneously, studying her as though she were an insect daring to challenge a predator. Then, without warning, they vanished back into the shadows, leaving behind only silence and a sense of impending doom. As the humans and Lumini retreated to the surface, Kalis turned to Ilara, his luminous form flickering faintly. "You've made a grave mistake," he whispered. "The Voidborn do not forgive. They will come for you now." Ilara clenched her fists, resolve hardening within her. "Then let them come. We didn't survive Earth to back down now." But deep down, she wondered if even humanity's resilience would be enough to face the darkness that awaited them. Back on the surface, the humans and Lumini worked together with renewed urgency. The encounter in the hidden chamber had made one thing painfully clear: time was running out. The Voidborn were no longer just a distant threat. They were watching, waiting, and preparing to strike. Every moment of hesitation brought them closer to the inevitable confrontation. Captain Ilara Voss convened an emergency meeting aboard the Aegis Dawn, gathering her senior officers and Elder Kalis to strategize. The tension in the room was palpable as everyone grappled with the enormity of what lay ahead. "We need a plan," Ilara began, her voice steady but firm. "We can't fight the Voidborn directly, not yet. We don't know enough about their capabilities or weaknesses. But we also can't sit back and wait for them to overwhelm us." Kalis nodded slowly, his translucent form glowing faintly despite the strain he clearly felt. "The Voidborn feed on light and energy," he explained. "Anything that radiates power will draw them like moths to a flame. Our cities once shone brightly, making us easy targets. Now even our diminished glow attracts them." Lieutenant Rhea Torres interjected, her analytical mind already working through possibilities. "If they're drawn to energy sources, then we need to minimize our own emissions, shut down non-essential systems on the fleet, and camouflage ourselves as much as possible. That might buy us some time." Commander Jax Calder frowned. "Camouflage won't stop them forever. Sooner or later they'll find us. And when they do, we'll need more than stealth. We'll need weapons capable of taking them down." Ilara turned to him. "Do you think we can modify our existing arsenal to counter them?" "It's risky," Jax admitted, "but I have an idea. Their armor seems to amplify their abilities. It might be vulnerable to electromagnetic pulses. If we can rig EMP grenades or disruptors, we might be able to disable them temporarily." Rhea's eyes lit up at the suggestion. "That could work. If we combine EMP tech with targeting systems designed to track their unique energy signatures, we'd stand a better chance in combat." Elder Kalis listened intently, his expression growing increasingly troubled. "Even if you succeed in harming them, it may not be enough. The Voidborn are relentless. They adapt quickly and never retreat until their hunger is sated." Ilara met his gaze squarely. "Then we'll make sure they leave hungry. Humanity thrives under pressure, Elder Kalis. When faced with the impossible, we find ways to survive and win." With a plan in motion, the crew sprang into action. Engineers aboard the Aegis Dawn and other ships in the fleet worked around the clock to retrofit weapons and develop new defensive measures. Meanwhile, scouts scoured the ruins of Luminara for any resources that could aid their efforts. The Lumini, though weakened, offered what assistance they could, sharing knowledge of their own technology and helping to fortify key locations. As preparations continued, tensions between the two species began to ease slightly. The humans marveled at the Lumini's ingenuity, particularly their ability to harness ambient energy without causing harm to their environment. In turn, the Lumini grew more comfortable with humanity's pragmatic approach, realizing that beneath their warlike exterior lay a deep-seated determination to protect others. One evening, as Ilara walked through the makeshift encampment set up near the edge of the city, she noticed groups of humans and Lumini working side by side. Some repaired damaged structures, others tested newly modified equipment. Despite the looming threat, there was a sense of camaraderie forming, an unspoken bond forged in the crucible of shared adversity. But not everyone shared this optimism. Lieutenant Rhea approached Ilara later that night, her face etched with concern. "Captain, I've been analyzing the Voidborn's energy patterns," she said quietly. "There's something off about them." "What do you mean?" Ilara asked. "They're not just consuming energy, they're storing it. It's like they're building up reserves for something bigger. Whatever they're planning, it's going to hit us hard." Ilara's stomach sank. "How long do we have?" "Hard to say," Rhea admitted, "but based on the rate of accumulation, I'd estimate less than 48 hours. The revelation weighed heavily on Ilara as she returned to her quarters. 48 hours wasn't nearly enough time to fully prepare. Yet giving up wasn't an option. She stared out at the darkened horizon of Luminara, where the storms raged endlessly. Somewhere beyond those clouds, the Voidborn lurked, biding their time. Just as doubt began to creep into her thoughts, a soft knock sounded at her door. Opening it, she found Elder Kalis standing there, his luminous form flickering faintly. "Captain," he said, his voice tinged with both gratitude and sorrow, "I wanted to thank you for everything. You've shown us that even in the darkest moments, hope still exists." Ilara managed a small smile. "Hope is all we have, Elder Kalis, and sometimes it's enough." As Kalis departed, Ilara felt a renewed sense of purpose. The battle ahead would be brutal, perhaps unwinnable, but humanity had faced extinction before, and every time they had risen stronger. This time would be no different. The storm was coming. And when it arrived, the Deathworlders would be ready. The final hours before the Voidborn's assault passed in a blur of activity. The humans and Lumini worked tirelessly, fortifying their positions and finalizing their preparations. Captain Ilara Voss moved among her crew with quiet determination, offering words of encouragement while ensuring every detail was accounted for. Despite the overwhelming odds, morale remained high, a testament to humanity's resilience and the fragile but growing bond between the two species. As dawn broke over Luminara, or what little light could pierce the stormy skies, the first signs of the Voidborn's approach became evident. The ground trembled faintly, as though the planet itself recoiled in fear. Shadows deepened unnaturally, swallowing entire sections of the landscape. From the horizon, an eerie glow began to spread, not the warm radiance of sunlight, but a cold, malevolent light that seemed to seep into the air and choke the life from everything it touched. "They're here," Commander Jax Calder announced grimly, his voice crackling through the comms system. He stood at the forefront of the defensive line, flanked by armed teams ready to engage. Behind them, the Lumini huddled together, their glowing forms dimmed deliberately to avoid drawing attention. Elder Kalis watched silently, his expression unreadable, but his body trembling faintly. Ilara took her position near the center of the encampment, overseeing operations from a tactical command post set up within one of the ruined buildings. Lieutenant Ria Torres monitored the energy readings, her eyes glued to the screens displaying real-time data on the approaching enemy. "Their energy signatures are spiking," she reported. "Whatever they've been storing up, they're about to unleash it." Moments later, the void erupted. A massive wave of darkness surged across the land, blotting out what little light remained. Within it, the Voidborn emerged, dozens of towering figures clad in shimmering armor, their glowing eyes scanning the area with predatory precision. They moved with unnatural speed, their footsteps sending shockwaves through the ground. "Hold your fire," Ilara ordered sharply, knowing that premature engagement could cost them dearly. She needed to wait for the right moment to strike. When the Voidborn were most vulnerable, the aliens paused just outside the range of the humans' weapons, seemingly studying their opponents. Then, without warning, they unleashed their first attack. Bolts of pure energy lashed out, striking indiscriminately at structures, equipment, and anyone caught in their path. Chaos erupted as explosions rocked the encampment, and the defenders scrambled to respond. "Now!" Ilara shouted, giving the signal to retaliate. The humans opened fire, launching EMP grenades and modified pulse rifles designed specifically to disrupt the Voidborn's energy fields. For a brief moment, the strategy appeared to work. Several of the creatures staggered, their armor flickering erratically as the electromagnetic pulses interfered with their systems. Cheers erupted among the defenders, but the victory was short-lived. The Voidborn adapted almost instantly. Their energy signatures shifted, bypassing the effects of the EMPs and rendering the humans' primary weapon ineffective. With terrifying efficiency, they counterattacked, unleashing waves of destructive force that tore through the makeshift defenses. Buildings collapsed, and fires raged unchecked as panic threatened to take hold. Amid the chaos, Ilara barked orders, rallying her troops and keeping them focused. "Fall back to secondary positions, regroup and reinforce." Commander Jax Calder led a desperate charge to buy time for the retreat, his team laying down suppressive fire as others dragged wounded comrades to safety. Even as he fought, however, he couldn't help but feel the weight of futility pressing down on him. These creatures weren't just stronger, they were smarter, faster, and utterly relentless. But then, something unexpected happened. As the battle raged, the Lumini stepped forward. Elder Kalis raised his arms and the other Lumini followed suit. Their bodies began to glow brighter than ever before, casting a soft, radiant light that pushed back against the oppressive darkness. The Voidborn hesitated, momentarily distracted by this sudden surge of energy. "What are they doing?" Ilara demanded, watching in disbelief as the Lumini willingly exposed themselves to danger. "They're sacrificing their own light," Ria realized, her voice filled with awe. "They're trying to weaken the Voidborn's control over the storms." Elder Kalis turned to Ilara, his form flickering weakly now. "This is our gift to you, Captain. Use it wisely." Tears welled in Ilara's eyes as she understood the magnitude of their sacrifice. The Lumini were giving everything they had left to give humanity a fighting chance. It was a gesture of trust and hope that couldn't be ignored. With renewed determination, Ilara ordered her team to press the advantage. "Target their cores," she yelled. "That's where they're channeling the energy. Hit them hard, Fame." Humans launched a coordinated assault, focusing all their firepower on the glowing centers of the Voidborn's armor. One by one, the creatures faltered, their forms collapsing under the concentrated barrage. But even as some fell, others advanced, undeterred. The battle wasn't over yet, but for the first time there was a glimmer of hope. Humanity's adaptability, combined with the Lumini's selfless act, had turned the tide, if only slightly. And in that fleeting moment, Elara knew they still had a chance, but the Voidborn weren't done. Not by a long shot. The battle raged on, each passing moment testing the limits of endurance for both humans and Lumini. The Voidborn, though weakened by the combined efforts of their foes, refused to yield. Their relentless assault pushed humanity to its breaking point, forcing every member of the crew to dig deeper than they ever had before. Captain Elara Voss stood at the heart of the chaos, her voice cutting through the din as she directed her team with unwavering resolve. "We can't stop now," she shouted, her words echoing over the comm system. "Hold the line!" Commander Jax Calder led a desperate counterattack, his team launching EMP grenades and pulse rifles in rapid succession. The Voidborn staggered under the renewed barrage, their armor flickering erratically as the electromagnetic pulses disrupted their energy fields. But even as some fell, others surged forward, their glowing eyes burning with an intensity that seemed almost alive. Lieutenant Ria Torres monitored the situation from the tactical command post, her fingers flying across the console as she analyzed data from the battlefield. "Their energy signatures are destabilizing," she reported, "but they're adapting too quickly. We need to hit them harder now." Elara nodded grimly. She knew what was at stake. If they failed here, not only would the Lumini be lost, but humanity's reputation as survivors would crumble along with Luminara. Failure wasn't an option, not when so many lives depended on their success. As the fight wore on, the Lumini continued to sacrifice themselves, their radiant forms dimming further as they poured every ounce of their remaining light into the effort. Elder Kalis, his body barely glowing now, stood beside Elara, his voice soft but filled with conviction. "You must finish this, Captain, for all of us." Elara clenched her fists, determination hardening within her. "We will. I promise you that." With no time to waste, she devised a risky plan, one that required perfect coordination and absolute trust. Calling her senior officers together, she laid out the strategy. "We'll draw them into the ruins," she explained. "Use the terrain to funnel them into tight spaces where we can concentrate our fire. Once they're trapped, we'll detonate the modified EMP charges we've been saving. It's our best shot." Jax hesitated, his expression dark. "If this doesn't work, we're dead." "It has to work," Elara replied firmly, "because if it doesn't, none of us are walking away from this planet." The final phase of the battle began with a carefully orchestrated retreat. The humans lured the Voidborn deeper into the crumbling city, using decoys and controlled explosions to guide them toward the designated kill zone. The aliens pursued relentlessly, their glowing forms casting eerie shadows against the shattered walls. When the Voidborn reached the heart of the ruins, Elara gave the order. "Detonate the charges!" A deafening roar shook the ground as the EMP charges exploded, releasing a massive wave of electromagnetic energy that rippled through the air. The Voidborn screamed, a sound unlike anything the humans had ever heard, as their armor disintegrated and their forms collapsed into nothingness. One by one, the towering figures fell, their malevolent presence vanishing like smoke in the wind. For a moment, there was silence. Then, slowly, the oppressive darkness lifted, revealing the first rays of sunlight breaking through the storm clouds above. The cosmic storms that had ravaged Luminara for so long began to dissipate, leaving behind a sky painted in soft hues of gold and lavender. Elder Kalis looked up at the light, tears streaming down his translucent face. "It's over," he whispered, his voice trembling with relief. Around him, the surviving Lumini gathered, their dimmed forms flickering faintly, but still alight. They had endured. Elara approached Kalis, her own eyes glistening. "You saved us," she said softly. "All of us. Your people's sacrifice made this possible." Kalis shook his head. "No, Captain. It was your courage and your refusal to give up that gave us hope. You reminded us that even in the darkest moments, light can prevail." As the humans began repairing the damage and aiding the Lumini in rebuilding their world, a newfound respect blossomed between the two species. Humanity's reputation among the stars grew, not just as survivors, but as protectors willing to stand alongside those in need. The Luminae, once fearful of humanity's strength, now saw them as allies and friends. In the days that followed, the Aegis Dawn prepared to depart. As Ilara stood on the bridge, gazing out at the slowly healing planet below, she felt a profound sense of pride. Her crew had faced the impossible and emerged victorious, not through brute force alone, but through unity, ingenuity, and compassion. Before leaving, Elder Kalis approached her one last time. "Captain Ilara Voss," he said, his voice steady. "Despite his frailty, you have shown us that even Deathworlders carry light within them. May it guide you always." Ilara smiled, placing a hand over her heart. "And may your light continue to shine, Elder Kalis, until we meet again." With that, the fleet departed, carrying with them the lessons of Luminara and the knowledge that hope could overcome even the darkest void. Behind them, the Luminae began to rebuild, not just their world, but their faith in the future. Somewhere among the stars, humanity's legend grew stronger. And though challenges lay ahead, they faced them knowing they weren't alone. Together, light would always find a way.